Koji nods, pulls out his cell phone, and calls his friend for what will probably be the last time. Call goes through quickly. Fuminori must have been waiting for it.
待たせたな、Fuminori。こっちの準備は整った。
Koji、今どこにいる？
Fuminori must have been quite anxious to hear from Koji. His voice is hard and completely emotionless. It's probably like, shit, so did he go to the house or not? Guess they didn't set off the phone. Can't hear in the background. Shit, where is he? Damn it, I don't have the advantage.
お前のすぐ背後とでも言っておこうか。
Koji can't help but smile at Fuminori's disappointment. Perhaps Ruka's medical sadism has rubbed off on him.
で、筑波を解放する決心はついたのか？
ああ、背に腹は変えられない。
He's lying, Koji thinks, remembering the contents of Fuminori's refrigerator. Just what part of Yo did you eat, huh? Did you carve that poor girl up like a pig?
コージ、お前は集めた資料のすべてを証拠ともども持ってこい。その内容を見て納得できたら、僕らはYoを引き渡す。
いいだろう。場所は？
まずは応戦の Y 駅まで来い。そこでお前が一人なのを確認してから、詳しい場所を教える。
念の言った話だな。
妙な細工はなしだ。45分以内に来い。
Fuminori hangs up without waiting for Koji's response.
俺が単独なのを確認するまで居場所は教えないつもりみたいです。
They're gonna be doing this at a later hour as well. It was like 8 p.m. or something last time. It's now 1 in the morning.
ただの医大生にしちゃ心得てるな。感心だ。
Ruka's praise sounds serious, drawing a glare from Koji.
私の車はここに置いていこう。殿君、君の車のトランクに人一人が入る隙間はあるかい？
大丈夫ですか？正気ですか？映画の見過ぎですよ。
そんじょそこいらの映画よりは危険な冒険なんだよ、これは。
With those bold words, Ruka grabs a duffel bag and rises from her seat.
で、この店を待ち合わせに選んだのは君だったな。
そうですが、何か？
コーヒーの責任を取れ。
She says and tosses him the check. They have all that, and it scene just ends where we're like, hey, you're the one who chose the location. I'm gonna be a cheap ass. You pay for the coffee. Even after Koji arrives at Y Station, as directed, Fuminori calls him and makes him change location 3 more times. Why is it called Y Station? Is it just like, because it's like, no, keep it ambiguous, you know? Because I mentioned a while back that the next Let's Play on this channel I think I'm going to do is Deathmark. And in that one it has a similar thing with that, where it's like, the city is just called H City. And like, it actually, I can't remember what city it was, but it's basically the H stands for the city that the company that made the game is based in. But it's still just like, keep it vague, but just having it as one letter, rather than giving it the full name. Makes him change locations 3 more times. Koji is beginning to doubt that Fuminori is watching. Might just be using the time to guess when Koji arrives at each designated location. Nevertheless, Koji can't let his guard down. Fuminori might choose any moment to make sure that he's alone. If he makes a mistake and puts Fuminori on alert, Ruka will lose her chance to take him by surprise. She'll just have to put up with the cramped trunk for a little while longer. After the nature preserve and a dry riverbed, the 4th location to which Fuminori sends Koji is in the thick wood forest at the top of the foothills, high above the developed area at their base. Scar's GPS shows a road that leads nowhere, but according to Fuminori, there should be an old abandoned sanatorium there. What a fitting location. That's what it was, a sanatorium. Very fitting. The park and river were empty this late at night, but during the day would likely have considerable traffic. This time, however, his instinct is telling him that it's definitely a place that no one could find, not even by accident. It looks like this is the final stop. Koji drives up the steep incline, soon leaving the residential neighborhood behind, even though the hands of progress are right at its doorstep. The undeveloped forest is darker than he expected. This looks like a great place to live in secret, or to kill someone and hide the body. Places like this, lost and forgotten, are found only in deep jungles and hidden valleys. Holes in the world are everywhere, even in the midst of civilization. Broken down gate posts. Oh, now we've got text we've already seen. So this is where it's gonna like change a bit here and there. Broken down gate post suddenly appears in Koji's headlights like a ghost rising from the darkness. Looks like this is the final stop. He rolls up to the gate and turns off the engine, giving himself to the silence of the forest. His phone starts ringing almost immediately. He doesn't need to check who it's from.
着いたぞ。
ああ、聞こえてた。ようこそ我が新居へ。
Fuminori is nearby, close enough to hear the sound of the engine. A shiver of excitement shoots up Koji's spine.
中に入ってこいよ。ようも待ってる。
Fuminori hangs up without another word. After grabbing his new flashlight from the glove compartment and checking that the revolver is still in his pocket, Koji opens the door, making sure to pop the trunk at exactly the same time. Ryoko shouldn't need any more explanation than that. Realizing that the interior roof light will stay on and broadcast that the trunk isn't closed, Koji quickly unscrews the bulb, then gets out of the car and deliberately slams the driver's side door hard. You don't know what's coming, Fuminori. Mountains of trash litter the front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. Koji sees everything from small refrigerators and mopeds to huge chunks of concrete and plaster that must have been abandoned by construction workers. The fact that they could get away with leaving all this behind shows just how remote this place is. Glancing sidelong at the rear of his car, Koji sees no movement inside the barely open trunk. Reckon knows what she's doing. She'll probably wait until Fuminori's attention is focused on Koji before making a move. The moon is brighter than usual, allowing Koji to walk through the front yard without tripping on debris. Staying alert, he heads for the building beyond the mountains of trash. Something must be buried underneath the piles of garbage, because the whole yard is filled with the sharp stink of chemicals. Even the homeless probably wouldn't come to this place. If you need to get out of the wind and rain, there are plenty of shelters more suitable. When he reaches the gaping doorless entrance to the building, Koji glances back the way he came. His car parked at the gate, hidden behind the mountains of trash. It's funny, isn't it? It just keeps changing from text we've seen, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is text we haven't seen, and then back to text we have seen, and then back to text we haven't seen. If Fuminori is watching from inside the sanatorium, he shouldn't be able to see Ryoko crawl out of the trunk. Looks like she'll get her chance to take him by surprise. You know, was it even acknowledged as a sanatorium in the other ending? I don't think it was. When he came here, he was just like, oh, run down a whole building. Many times now has he stood like this, alone in some ominously silent place far removed from his everyday life. Sneaking into earthly quiet houses to find traces of unimaginable happenings has become as normal as going to class. Houses that explored before were like freshly shared cicada shells, empty and dilapidated, but with traces of the life they had sheltered. This place, however, is different, a perfect ruin, its walls and pillars rising from the dark forest like an army of ghosts, with no sign at all that people once lived and worked here. Structures resemble a skeleton more than a shell. Time and the elements have stripped it of its former shape, and now there is only death. Koji has gone as far as he can. This must be the final stop. What will Fuminori's next move be? He must be planning to kill Koji, but how? Just as he's about to turn on his flashlight, Koji reconsiders. If he wanders around with the light on, he will be broadcasting his exact location. That will give the advantage to Fuminori, who's probably lying in wait for him right now. He holds the light before him in his left hand with his finger poised on the switch. His right hand he raises a revolver, keeping it pointed in the same direction. Now ready to fire when he turns on the light, Koji steps quietly into the dark room. It takes a while for his eyes to adjust, but even when they do, he has only moonlight streaming through empty windows to guide him. Everything appears grey and indistinct. However, Fuminori has to deal with the same conditions if he's hiding here. This is a battle of nerves, exhausting and deadly, where the first to make a sound and give away his position will lose. The rooms on both sides of the hallway are all open. Some are even missing their doors. Koji creeps up to each entrance, checks to make sure no one is inside, and carefully proceeds on. Think that he noticed and the garden has changed. Now it smells more organic. Like rotting meat. It's the exact same smell that filled Fuminori's house. The organism's flesh freely expands in a manner that renders piercing damage meaningless. 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 Koji grits his teeth and forces the madman's words out of his head. It's like... I don't know, it just makes me think of, I don't know. Well, video games in general. It's just like, no, you gotta use a different type of weapon on this one. Because, you know, it's like, you know, in games where it's like, a monster will be immune to physical attacks, so you gotta use magic attacks on them. Or the other way around, you know, where it's like, only physical attacks will hit and magic will just be absorbed. Koji grits his teeth and forces the madman's words out of his head. I already read that. What good can come of taking them seriously? This isn't the time for such useless. It's totally useful. Keep that in mind, for the squish is here. Koji freezes and stares down the hole. It's a wet sound that he heard just now, like someone dragging their feet through a swamp, and it came from the room at the end of the hall. Something is there, something alive. Koji creeps towards the sound, his lighter and gun at the ready. Now it sounds like someone is squeezing mud through their fingers, and as he gets closer, Koji begins to hear breathing. Could it be Fuminori? No, that's impossible. He should be waiting for a chance to ambush Koji, not making a careless noise. As he proceeds, the strange sound coming through the cracks in the concrete walls grow clearer. Before he knows it, he is standing on the threshold. The room is filled with a thick, vicious darkness, just like every other room that he's passed. There's more than just darkness, however. Something is there. You can hear pained breathing like that of a wounded animal, and what sounds like sobbing. Sobbing.
誰だ
Koji whispers into the darkness. Now that he's given away his position, he might as well turn on his light. For some reason, however, Koji feels that to do so would have disastrous consequences. It's gonna play out identical for Koji here. Last thing I heard her voice, the time I heard her voice on the phone, she was sobbing. The wheezing suddenly stops. And then... a whisper comes out of the darkness, though not a human voice, not by any measure. It speaks some blasphemous semblance of human words. A nightmarish flash of insight connects the dots in Koji's mind.
つくば
Can't be. Yo doesn't sound like this. She doesn't smell like this. But if it's not Yo, then how does it know his name? Why is it begging him for help? No, it can't be Yo. She's human, not some creature that slithers and hides in the shadows. The thing wriggles closer. His reason cries out, imploring him to switch the lights on before it's too late, or to turn and run if he cannot. But Koji is unable to make either choice. He can only call out in vain to the amorous sheep in the darkness.
つくばなのか直江まさかつくばなのか
Something soft and slimy slides over Koji's toes. Instinct overrides his will, forcing him to turn on his light and shine it at his feet. The white beam reveals everything, the merciless truth that finally shatters Koji's sanity. Gonna waste the bullets again? Terror webs his mind of all but 2 words, gun and trigger. His finger responds with instant obedience. There's an explosion of light and sound, but both more intense than he anticipated. And the destructive forces are swallowed up by the darkness. His ears are still ringing from the bang, but he hears a weak voice coming from the shadows. Koji screams and pulls the trigger again and again, certain that salvation can come only from the barrel of his gun. Light and darkness, explosion and silence, they dance before him 3 more times. Koji doesn't even need to aim. The horrible creature is right at his feet, far too close to miss. Yep, Tanbo was right. It's like, I'm gonna have to come in after you completely botch your, attack because you're just going to completely lose your shit again. Wrecker warned him how many... Oh. It doesn't seem quite as highlighted. It doesn't feel quite as bright and white. But it is definitely different text. The horrible creature is running its feet far too close to the mist. Wrecker warned him about how many bullets were left. Oh wait, never mind, it isn't. That was something that was there originally as well. Many bullets were left in the gun, but that information has already been driven from his mind. Even after the cold, heavy gloom wraps itself around him once more, Koji keeps pulling the trigger like a man possessed, paying no heed to the clicking of the empty weapon. His panic-stricken legs suddenly give out, sending him down hard on his backside. Even then, he keeps firing the empty gun. He knows no other way to erase the memory of the thing that he glimpsed in the beam of his flashlight. Light which fell from his hand during the attack is now pointing in a different direction, and though all 4 bullets must have hit their target, they were Koji's last card to play. To move the pierce damage, you fool! Which leaves him alone in the darkness with no way to defend himself, and just as he realizes this, as the rotting flesh rolls over him like a tidal wave. He can no longer even scream as the thing pushes him onto his back. Fear seizing his throat in an iron grip, Koji struggles desperately against the monster as it crawls up his body towards his face. Covering his face with his left hand, he scrambles wildly along the floor with his right, searching for a way out that doesn't exist. His mind is that of a feral animal, empty of everything but primal terror. And that is why, when his right hand closes around something hard at the last moment, he recognizes it instinctively as a weapon. Putting every ounce of strength into his arm, Koji swings the heavy object at the creature on top of him. He hears the thud of a blunt object striking something soft and wet, and then Koji's attacker rolls off him. As soon as he is able to move again, Koji leaps to his feet and grabs his new weapon with both hands, brandishing it like a charm to ward off evil. Only now does he realize that he's holding a rusty steel pipe. Just made me think of Silent Hill. It's like, yes, the trusty old pipe has decent reach. The moment is still sobbing, not stabbing. With a cry that is part scream, part roar, Koji raises the steel pipe and brings it crashing down on the cowering creature. That makes me wonder, how would a Silent Hill protagonist, Carrie Mason or James Sunderland, or even Heather Mason, respond to all this epic abomination shit? Would they just kind of run with him and be like, you know what, fuck it, I can handle this? He hears a wet sound and feels the blood-chilling sensation of its thick, soft flesh absorbing the blow. These combine to evoke an instinctive loathing that wipes his mind of all but the urge to destroy. That's what I think I've been wondering, if maybe Sai's mere existence, because, while nobody really, or anything, would know what, the intent of kind of science that would be is to basically take over the dominant species of the planet or whatever. Maybe it's like gives off that vibe to everything, like humans and all other animals, which makes them naturally aggressive towards her. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because it's ugly as fuck. That thing does not obey the rules of anything. It is not of this world, it is not of this, solar system probably, it's from I don't know, the backstory's there. Consumed by the same desperation with which he kept firing the empty gun, Koji rains blow after blow down on his head. After the 10th blow it stops sobbing, after the 20th blow it stops moving, and after the 30th blow it begins to feel and sound more and more like he's beating a pillow viciously. So, she was transformed into whatever size, so does that mean that all you really need to take down Sire is just hit him with something like a pipe multiple times? Koji doesn't stop thrashing the creature until he recovers enough of his senses to realize that whatever it might have been before, it is now nothing but a corpse. pipe in his hand, covered with unidentifiable fluids and filth, suddenly feels unbearably heavy.
君はまだ一番致命的なものまでは見ていない。
Rector's voice plays back in his head, and at last he knows how merciful his warning was. Now that his eyes are as open as hers, he's able to laugh in contempt of his own foolishness. Keep your guard up, though. 20 years of memories in the light of the sun. If they were indeed precious to him, then he should never have come to this place. Black flames of despair rise within him, consuming fear and revulsion and pity. Only rage and hate remain. Every cell in his body cries out for vengeance, for the blood of the man who poisoned him with the truth and tore him from the womb of innocence. Then Koji, slave to hate, hears the sound of someone sneaking up behind him. Koji whirls, swinging his pipe with all the force he can muster. His enemy hastily leaps back to avoid the strike, surprised by his failure to catch Koji off guard. Twisted shadows dance in the beam of light on the floor. Readying his pipe for the next blow, Koji faces off against his second attacker.
Fuminori.
Before this moment, Koji could never have imagined that he would ever speak his friend's name with such hatred.
おいおい、今の一振り、まるっきり手加減抜きかよ。
And look at this, the smug piece of shit. So, it's like, he doesn't realize, like, his axe, you know, it just looks like a regular axe, because the CG where we see him holding an axe looked a bit like an Eldritch Abomination thing. It looked like, you know, maybe a weapon you'd get in Skyrim from the Daedric Princes, probably Amaeus Mora. Even now, Fuminori is smiling as, well, I've already really played Skyrim and you get that book in from him. But if he had a weapon, it would totally look like that. Even now, Fuminori is smiling as though the huge axe in his hands is just a sick joke.
参ったな。
It's just a prank, man.
正直なところ、お前はもう少し迷うもんだと思ってたんだけど。迷うだと？俺が？貴様に？
Koji sneers too, unable to contain his contempt for the notion.
貴様、近江をどうした？筑波に一体何をした？それを考えてもまだ俺が貴様を殺すのに迷うだと？そいつは言いがかりのつけ方が逆だろ、コージ。
Fuminori growls, looking sadly at the pile of dead flesh at Koji's feet.
コージの分際で僕の世をひどい目に遭わせやがって。世の10倍は痛めつけてから殺してやる。覚悟しろ。
Like you're one to talk, Fuminori. Piece of shit. Blade of Fuminori's axe carves a murderous arc through the darkness, glittering menacingly in the faint light coming from the floor. Koji raises his pipe to block the ferocious swing. The heavy impact numbs his arms, but his large frame takes the blow without giving any ground. Fuminori presses the attack, delivering a second blow and third. His axe, designed for chopping down trees, is deadlier and more durable than the piece of pipe Koji found discarded on the floor. The strike Koji blocks sends chunks of rust flying from his makeshift weapon. It's funny, isn't it? He loses his weapon that he would have had the advantage. And, you know, just finding a makeshift weapon and he's going, you know, toe-to-toe with Fuminori. Like it's nobody's business. It's like, even when, you know, Fuminori had all the advantage in the world, he still couldn't get it done here. Because now they're on an even. They can't win as long as he's on the defensive. He needs to create an opportunity to attack.
Come on!
Koji blocks a crushing downward swing, then pushes back hard before Fuminori can pull away, throwing him off balance. Fuminori stumbles backward, then plants his feet to steady himself. Taking advantage of his opponent's temporary immobility, Koji delivers a punishing low kick to Fuminori's outer thigh. Fuminori grunts and retreats, swinging his axe wildly to prevent Koji from following up with another attack. Koji, however, does not press his advantage. He just stands where he is, calmly spearing Fuminori with a stare.
お前、喧嘩に慣れてねえな。
Fuminori rolls and comes in for another attack. The damage to his right leg seems to be slowing his swing. I know, his words got him there, so he's like, that's the thing, he probably hasn't been in a fight before. He's letting his anger get the better. Easily blocking the axe with his pipe, Koji waits for Fuminori to exhaust himself. Fuminori delivers blow after heavy blow, howling savagely all the while. What he does not realize, however, is that the situation now favors composure, not brute force. When Fuminori raises his axe high for yet another attack, Koji sees that his movements have grown dull enough. Seizing the opportunity, Koji charges into Fuminori's range and grabs the haft of the axe with his left hand. As Fuminori recoils in fear, Koji swings his pipe hard at his enemy's unprotected side. He feels the crunch of ribs breaking. The pain drives Fuminori to his knees. Staring down at Fuminori's defenseless head, Koji, surprised by his own lack of emotion, raises his pipe high to deliver the finishing blow. Which is when something wraps itself around his left ankle. Hey, Tanbo, now'd be a good time to, come in here. The instant Koji panics at the unexpected sensation, something soft yet strong winds itself around his right leg and drags him to the floor before he can resist. Twists his body and tries to swing the pipe at the unseen enemy behind him. With his right hand, too, is seized by the same flexible force. He wasn't able to feel it through his pants, but now his blood turns to ice at the cold, slimy sensation of the thing wrapped around his uncovered wrist. That monster's still alive? Fuminori says encouragingly, even while kneeling on the floor, his face twisted in pain. He manages a terrible, victorious grin. Sire. This monster is Sire. When he struggles desperately to free his limbs from the creature's slimy grip. More tentacles swarm over his body, stealing his freedom movement. Tanbo! Now's a good time! Horror's already driven Koji half mad. Just imagine the creature's appearance is enough to send him into a mindless panic. The scream is suddenly cut off as a slimy bend seizes his throat. Its most deadly tentacle isn't just cutting off his winding pipe, it's trying to snap his neck and skin tight. Well, here we go. Difference. Koji is certain that this is the end, and just as his vision begins to dim, an explosion brings him back to his senses. With a horrifyingly inhuman scream, the creature releases Koji and retracts its tentacles. The first thing he sees after regaining his mobility is Ryoko running down the hall with a smoking shotgun in one hand and a silver tube in the other.
Sensei!
Ryoko responds by tossing him the tube. Though still laying on the floor, he managed to snatch it out of the air. It's the firm out she showed him at the restaurant, the one she called her secret weapon. Ryoko shoots Koji at the same time she aims her gun at Fuminori, who's still on his knees 5 paces away. Double-barreled shotgun still has one shot loaded. The monster that attacked Koji is writhing in agony, passing yet recovered from Ryoko's shot. But he's already seen that bullets aren't enough to kill these creatures. Now is his only chance. Fuminori growls, gritting his teeth against the pain of his broken ribs. Forcing himself to be calm, Koji stands and carefully unscrews the lid of the thermos. No question in his mind that something extremely potent is inside. As soon as it's unsealed, a thick white mist pours out of the thermos and the surrounding air turns freezing cold. Instantly guessing what's inside, Koji lobs the thermos at the pile of flesh convulsing on the floor. The thermos sails through the air, spewing white fog, and like a at the baptismal font showers its liquid contents upon the hellish creature. So, if it takes this to take out Sire, then what about you? Scream this time is incomparable to before. Monster thrashes in agony. Wreathed in white smoke, its screams are joined by Ryoko's cackling.
どうよマイナス197度だよねえ冷たい熱いざまあないわね
And she's a bit sadistic here, isn't she? Perhaps the joy of vanquishing her nightmare was worth the last remnants of her sanity. The manic glee blazing in her eyes can belong only to a shattered mind. Fuminori staggers to his feet, roaring black curses. His rage seems to have drowned out the pain of his broken bones. Ryoko is not one to underestimate a friend, but threat posed by his axe. Mad laughter fades away, leaving only a cold smile as she pulls the trigger. With a sharp burst of dark flame, Ryoko's gun sputters and dies. Shit. Ryoko is not an expert on firearms. It never occurred to her that shotgun shells need proper storage, and besides, she would expect that any situation where a gun would be necessary would also be one that she would not survive. You gotta dodge! Cursing in anger and dismay, Ryoko breaks the gun open and awkwardly pulls the dud out, while Fuminori stalks towards her like a vengeful demon, head of his axe screeching as it drags along the floor. Now, you have to stop. Koji tries to charge Fuminori but only succeeds at sending himself sprawling. One of his shoes is stuck to the floor, frozen by the liquid nitrogen. Ryoko fumbles in her pocket for a new shell. Fuminori closes the distance and raises axe to both hands. Koji curses and rips his shoe free of the frozen concrete, but he knows that he'll never make it down. Ryoko thrusts a new shell into the chamber of a shotgun and snaps it closed, then looks up to find her target. Fuminori is right before her, too close to evade, and his axe is already crashing down with the wind howling in its wake. Sound of bone shattering, tendon snapping, and flesh tearing blend together in foul harmony. Thick blades enters through Ryoko's left shoulder, plowing through her collarbone and shoulder blade, smashing several ribs and popping her lung like a balloon before stopping in the center of her chest. Expression frozen and shocked by the impact, she sprays her gazer of blood from her. She should have died instantly, but through some unimaginable force of will, Ryoko clings to life for a few seconds more. Grinning through blood-stained lips, she raises her shotgun. Kill him. Not to the front, but to the side. Beyond the barrel of her gun, wearing the 77-degree Kelvin mist like a white cloak of death, is the weakly wriggling sire. Fuminori's scream vanishes into the roar of the shotgun. The destruction is absolute. The impact of the shotgun pellets obliterates the half of Sire's body that falls prey to the liquid nitrogen. The frozen particles of Sire's shattered flesh drift to the floor like snow. Even the creature's special biology is insignificant to seal a wound of this size. From the opening pore, its internal organs, a tide of liquid slime and fat whose color is far too foul to belong to any living creature. The monster convulses, wailing in a weak, pitiful voice.
Saya.
With his axe still buried in Ryoko's body, Fuminori stares at the dying creature, his expression utterly devoid of emotion. Koji grabs his pipe and prepares to attack Fuminori from behind, but freezes when he sees the emptiness on the face of the man he hated. Fuminori pulls his axe out of Ryoko's corpse and looks at Koji with glazed eyes. There's no recognition in them, nor hate, nor rage. When Koji meets Fuminori's blank stare, he knows. There's nothing left in him to kill. Fuminori grips the axe closer to its head and raises it high, the blade towards his face. Koji doesn't know well he should interfere, but even if he wanted to, what could he say to stop Fuminori? Fuminori pulls his head back slowly, then drives his face into the blade of the axe like a spring-loaded toy. Shame we didn't get a CG of that. Finally, the bastard's dead. I kinda feel bad for Sire, but I still don't feel bad for Fuminori. Fuck Fuminori. His skull caves in with a dull, wet sound, and a spray of blood catches Koji in the face. Despite Fuminori's utter lack of hesitation, his first attempt at suicide succeeds only in transforming his face into a hash of crimson. Oh. Fuminori pulls his head back one more time, even slower than before, and with every ounce of strength still left in his body, he slams it into the blood-stained axe. The sound is wetter than before. Fuminori's body goes limp, then tumbles face first to the floor. Koji stares at the two mangled corpses for a while, feels completely left behind, like he can't remember why he stayed in his place with a steel pipe in his hand. Steel air filling the ruined building becomes choked with the stench of blood. The crimson puddles gradually spread across the snow-covered floor. But the tranquility of the scene makes it seem like a painting. A painting in blood. A soft slimy sound breaks the silence. Koji looks at the mortally wounded monster. Creature's on death's floor, but even so, moves slowly, feebly, drags his broken body through the sea of blood. It's coming for Fuminori. Koji had forgotten his anger, but now it comes surging back at full force. He growls and stabs the monster with the end of his pipe, convulses in agony, but keeps crawling towards Fuminori. He's like, yeah, I feel bad for Saya. She's still kind of a monster that, has done a bunch of really shitty things, and all has questionable morals. But I feel more bad for her than Fuminori. and he explodes into a frenzy of rage.
死ねえよ。もう死んでろよ。これ以上文則に使えるんじゃねえよ。
Again and again he smashes the helpless flesh beast with his pipe. Someone tells him that if he does not stop it here, he will truly have lost. That just kind of went by automatically there. Now you must just stay the hell away from him. Monster, however, never succumbs, struggles on beneath his blows until finally reaches Fuminori's corpse.
触るな。文則に触るな。てめえは何様だってんだよ。ああ。
Koji keeps swinging, it's very unabated, even as tears start to pool in his eyes. Once his slime flies through the air, joining with the blood already covering his face. Creature extends one thin, trembling tentacle to touch Fuminori's shoulder, and lovingly caresses his blood-stained cheek. And then it stops moving. Even in its final moments, the monster would not let Fuminori go. It died, joined with him. At last, Koji knows that the world he loved is gone forever. And then as he, steps outside the building,
ねえねえ、今度のスキーだけどさ、今年はどっかスケートも遊べるところにしない？
but just get this out of the way first. It's like as he's leaving, he's like dousing the place and gasoline and shit.